How many discounts does USAA Auto Insurance offer? Too many to say here. Multi-vehicle discount, safe driver discount, new vehicle discount, storage discount, legacy.
How many discounts will you stack up? Visit USAA.com/auto discounts. Restrictions apply.
This message is brought to you by Abercrombie Kids, where the activewear is made for every summer activity, so your mini-me can bring their personal best. Summer days are always an adventure, from day camp to rec leagues and pool days. Abercrombie Kids has the shorts, tees, and swim to keep them comfy and keep up with them. Get everything for the entire summer at Abercrombie Kids. Shop in-store, online, or in the app.
Switch to Verizon Business and get more from your internet without paying more for your internet. Get LTE Business Internet starting at $39 a month when paired with select business mobile plans. That's unlimited data, and with it, unlimited possibilities. Start saving today with Verizon Business, ranked #1 in small business internet customer satisfaction by J.D. Power. Starting price for 25 megabits per second LTE internet plan with smartphone plan savings, plus taxes, fees, and economic adjustment charge. Terms apply. For J.D. Power 2024 award information, visit jdpower.com/awards.
Matt, this is insane to tell you. This is the second to last ALTV that we're ever going to talk about.
I know.
We're nearing the end of an era. And years ago, Matt, I lived in Los Angeles for a grand total of 5.5 months.
Yes, you've mentioned that, yeah.
And during those 5.5 months, I befriended a man named Witney, who went on to be a pretty prolific writer on the internet and recently shared an article about ALTVs that made me say, well, Witney needs to come on and do one of these last two ALTVs. Witney, I apologize. First of all, welcome to the show. I apologize that we're getting the VH1 edition of ALTV that is really not much in comparison to what ALTV can and should be when it's done right. But there's still some great stuff to talk about in this episode, I think.
Well, I mean, this one came out in like the early 2000s when I was already an adult. I was really paying attention. So I have a little bit more to say about it, being cognizant of the actual pop landscape. I didn't just share that article; I wrote it. That was my article. It was on, on my website.
I should have worded that better, but yes, you shared an article.
It was
which
just like
you
you
had
just
written.
posted someone else's article, and you're like, "Oh, that reminds me of Whitney. He should come on the show."
This one guy I know, he once shared this thing on social media, and it was really cool, so I decided to have him on.
Exactly.
Thank you for having me on. It's actually a great honor. And it's kind of odd seeing Al in these ALTV things a little more polished, because you think back to the early days of MTV. I mean, they started in 1981, on my birthday, actually, August 1st, 1981. And it was just the Wild West back then. They would have anything on the early days of MTV. They needed to fill the time. So they had whatever bonkers acts they could find. So we get Weird Al. He was perfect. He took like a duck to water to these early days of MTV. Back when you could say Weird Al was kind of a punk. You look at sort of the early days of Weird Al, and he kind of dovetails with Devo a lot, and he dovetails with the sort of post-punk new wave rise that was going on at the time. He was really kind of deconstructing popular culture, and it was before he kind of became polished and mainstream. And I feel like Poodle Hat was really a big turning point for him, where he stopped turning away from that kind of scrappy punk rock deconstruction of popular culture and went into the studio and really started polishing and zeroing in and making his songs sound a really specific way. And like this is the first album of latter day Al, I would say.
Yeah.
So and I feel
fair,
like the Al TV on VH1 reflects that. It's, it fits in a 45-minute time slot. It's a little bit more about sort of pre-taped segments in the presentation than it is about Al finding weird old videos that he wants to share, or sitting around in his studio, which is just cluttered with giant toothbrushes and hamsters. It's so much more produced and processed. It's it's almost like an afterthought, the ALTV. It's like, okay, I have a new album to promote. It's going to be about promoting the album. It's not going to be about the ALTV experience any longer.
Yeah.
Well,
he
it's funny,
actually even acknowledges that in the start of this, where he says, like, it's funny that I only seem to interrupt these broadcasts when I have an album to promote. Like he's almost acknowledging it at this point. But yeah, this is missing. It's definitely missing the scrappiness. It's missing the news segments and the overdubbed music videos. And like you said, like sometimes we would be watching these and just be like, what is this like random madness song that he's found and decided to play this video during this 3-hour block of MTV? Like you are losing. What was cool about ALTV was it also gave you a real interesting peek behind the curtain of like, what does Al Yankovic listen to when he's not researching the songs for his albums? And it was like these weird videos by group, like deep cut Devo songs and stuff like that. Like you said, he was part of that scene. This is not even for the most part. It's basically just Al music videos and the interview stuff really condensed into 45 minutes without commercials. I mean, it's not bad. Like, we're getting the Eminem interview, which is like one of his. We'll get there eventually, but that's like arguably one of the best interview edits he's ever done.
I actually have to say, I feel like this sequence of interviews is one of the best he has ever done.
Oh,
like
for sure.
These interviews they hit really, really well. They're very well done. He has gotten so stupid good at this point that like the edits and the reaction shots and the visuals back and forth are fantastic. I mean, I agree with you both. I miss the scrappy, like like absurdist sketch comedy that he was essentially doing in some of those early ALTVs. It was so like truly, it seemed like they gave him a modest budget, but all the time in the world to make those, you know what I mean? And to just do whatever he wanted to do. And at this point in time, I don't know if it's VH1, I don't know if it's Al's just work schedule that is preventing it, but it just all seems like this has to be done way faster. And it's just like, this is like a one day. Al is on location shooting this in one day. He's got this the interview segments he can crank out in maybe one more day, and then they package it together with his music videos, and he's back on his way. And again, I don't know if that's his limitation or VH1's, but that's what it feels like to me. Not necessarily even less creative, just less time to put into it, you know?
I would almost suspect that it goes all the way back to the 1996 ALTV that we talked about, right? That one for Bad Hair Day is the first time that it feels like someone is telling him how to do what he does. And then, as you remember when we talked about that one, Jeff gave us the insight of like, Al is not happy with how that ALTV turned out. And,
right.
Whitney, in case you don't have an encyclopedic memory of all of the ALTVs like we've managed to put together through doing this show, that particular
I
ALTV...
do have like a playlist, but yeah.
That particular ALTV, MTV told him that what he was going to do for ALTV was play the original music video followed by his parody video, and that was the only videos he was going to play. So it was like,
oh gosh,
he couldn't do the video overdubs. He couldn't do like a lot of that stuff. It wasn't in the studio. It was him on like a rooftop hotel room by a pool the whole time. Like, that is like the beginning of ALTV definitely not having the same energy and edge that the early ones did. But I do think that when we were doing the Much TV versions of ALTV that he did do for his 90s albums, including I think Bad Hair Day, those still had a little bit more of that energy and that punk rock vibe. But I think once he did that Bad Hair Day one and it started to become very clear to him that it wasn't going to be 100% the creative control that he was able to have for the first like 7 of them, I think that was kind of him kind of just relinquishing this as strictly a promotional tool and not the really cool thing that it was for the first like 6 or 7.
Yeah, let's not forget, this is also, we're approaching the tail end of MTV.
Yeah,
I mean, the tail end of its heyday for
right
sure.
now.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So there's also just a sense of like, maybe it might have felt like juice wasn't even worth the squeeze to put that much into this thing that probably not that many people are actually going to see.
Yeah, like I think it's fascinating that he still does the parody of the MTV like kickoff thing on VH1.
Right.
Like it's just like there's a lot
The
more. It's just
licensing
like,
for that must have been a friggin' nightmare. No, well, and you can actually see that happening in Al's career. Like, not with Bad Hair Day, I think he was still in it, but when he turned 40, his first record they released after he had turned 40 was Running with Scissors. And that was the one where he changed his look. He got the LASIK eye surgery. He changed his diet. He met his future wife around that time. And in fact, his pregnant wife is on the cover of Poodle Hat. So he's like growing and maturing as a human being as well as an artist. And I feel like doing the kind of scrappy mid-'80s MTV thing just really wasn't in his wheelhouse anymore. I think he kind of acknowledged that in his 40s, and speaking as a man in his 40s, we're not cool anymore. We don't drive the conversation. That's the youth's job. There's got to be a new generation to come in and bug us. Who is dictating music? It's teenagers, kids. The young whippersnappers are the ones who are kind of breaking in and shaking things up. It's not guys in their 40s starting things.
Right.
Guys in their 40s rest on their laurels. We have legacies now.
Right.
That's what we do. So I think. When it came to doing these sort of ALTV segments, it really wasn't about him enjoying music anymore. It was about the promotion. And if you've heard some interviews with Al, he talks about how his record sales have just gotten smaller and smaller and smaller over the years, just because the music industry is changing. He used to be able to sell many, many, many cassettes or LPs or CDs and actually make a lot of money that way. And at some point, I think he and a lot of artists recognized that the record is actually just like a promo for the tour. And he realized that making money is, selling T-shirts and merch and selling concert tickets is where the real money's at. So I think he just kind of, as cynical as Al can be, I think he got a little cynical. Yeah. Which is a weird thing to say about somebody like Weird Al, who's usually so fresh-faced and open and kind of kind and feckless. So I'm not sensing that he's bored with it. I think he's really bringing it, especially to your point. All of the interview segments are just spot on in this one.
Yeah.
Yes.
And he's really he just nails those. Those are fantastic. But at the same time, you can tell that he's in it for a different reason. He's not in it to spend 4 hours up in the middle of the night in his 20s, playing Dog Police by Dog Police.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting. That's a very interesting read on it. I mean, I see where you're coming from, and I do think it's entirely possible. I don't know. I'm not. I don't know. I could go either way on this. I'm fascinated that the idea that it's like, I think it was also this time as well where like, I guess we're sort of saying the same thing, that these networks were being so like, is the juice worth the squeeze ultimately? And maybe that's something as you get older, you start to think about more and more of like, is this really worth the amount of effort I'm going to put into it for MTV or VH1 or whatever it is, where I could be putting my energy into other things.
Well, let's focus on, so something that we talk about a lot of the time when we do these, we find these videos on YouTube or on the archive or wherever we can find an ability to watch one. And something that we love to point out is when these videos do include the commercials of the time. Now, this one is pretty meticulously edited. You barely get more than about 15 seconds of commercial break.
Yeah, very small amount.
But to tie into everything that we're talking about, right? This video starts with Drea Di Matteo from The Sopranos concluding the 100 greatest songs of the last 20 years countdown. Yes. And then we get these closing credits, and it's like this really weird, like, outakey thing. And what that is saying to me and reminding me is, like, this ALTV is also happening at the peak of VH1 doing their, like, I love the 80s, talking head, let's get a bunch of funny people to talk about pop culture. And it probably just feels at this point like, yeah, Al, we don't need you to do the news segment talking about the news and being goofy because we do that on Best Week Ever every single week now.
Yeah.
But, like, here's the thing that you can do. Like, all of the stuff that he created in LTV, people had taken. Like, you know, like, people had turned it into something else.
Yeah, you might be right.
It was his shtick.
Yeah. And people took it and kind of did their own thing with it. This one, we get a bunch of overdubs where it'll be the original music video with the parody version of the song. And some of them are good. Some of them, one of them I wrote down, the Nelly, it's got Getting Hot in Here one is like not even remotely synced up with anything that's happening.
No, he tried his best, but he couldn't fully, nowadays you can like AI the mouths and do all sorts of stuff to make it look different. But he tried his best.
Yeah, like the Complicated one and the eBay one looked like good enough. It's usually them like speeding up or slowing down the video to try to get that sync there. But like Nelly, no such luck. But this is mostly interviews. So let's talk about this first interview, which I'd never seen before. And that's why I had such a delight with it. The Avril Lavigne one, which he starts off by calling her Michelle Branch, already hilariously timely for 2003.
I just especially love, he does the whole, like, please welcome Michelle Branch. And she goes, I'm Avril Lavigne. And he just very indignantly goes, okay. Like, as if, how dare you even correct me on this? Who cares?
There is so many, and we say this question every single time we watch any of these interviews, but the Avril Lavigne one is probably, of the 4 interviews, the one where I most wish I could see the original interview, because I want to know what the hell is she talking about. Like, for real. Because she's like, the first quote I wrote down was her just going like, oh my God, the cameras, oh my God. Like, and then
I was like, no, cameras are your friend. Cameras are good. And then she just goes, yay, cameras.
The line that killed me was, she's talking about before she was famous, before there was even a video for Complicated, there'd be people on stage that knew all the words to my songs. And Al goes,
on the
your
stage,
band?
Your band. Although there's a little bit of like condescending jokes coming from Al in that segment, because I remember when Avril Lavigne hit, because I'm a very old person, when Complicated and Skater Boy and those things were sort of charting and playing on Radio Disney, a lot of people said that this was the new generation of punk rock.
Yeah.
And no, pop punk, sure. I'd call her pop punk. I think that's fair, and I think she'd agree. But she doesn't have the middle finger raised, smash the establishment kind of attitude of a punk rocker. So he kind of made fun of her a little bit.
Like, who's your favorite punk rock artists? Like,
do you like the Sex Pistols or the Clash? She's like, whatever. I don't know.
And then
that.
he says, what's your favorite punk song? And she says the YMCA. No, it's funny. We talked about
that's a little mean spirited.
It is, and we talked about in the Complicated Song episode about how Avril was very divisive in that world at the time, because she was bringing all these young people in, but also it was like, it felt like the definition of like poser stuff at the time,
which I do think is unfair, because I think I said that on the episode too, but it's like,
I think in hindsight it was unfair, and I think there were a lot of other bands. I think bands get manufactured in a similar way to Avril all the time, and I think people just don't notice it or treat it the same way as when it's like a singular young woman up on a platform like that. I think that's a much tougher thing to have to weather.
Yeah, like there's no world where you could convince me that a band like Simple Plan couldn't be just as manufactured as Avril Lavigne, but because it's a 5-person guy band, everyone's just like, they must have been playing. I just never got
no one really
chance
thinks
to hear
twice
them
about
until
it.
they got signed.
It's true.
But
yeah,
a cute punky girl, it must be a pop star that's in.
It's a hoax.
Yeah, it's all a hoax. It's not even really her, Matt. Don't you know she died forever ago, and this is the...
Oh, we all know the Avril Lavigne conspiracy. We can't even begin to get into that right now.
Wait. Pause. Slow down for a minute. Tell me the Avril Lavigne conspiracy.
Do you not know this?
Matt Kelly.
Okay.
Here we go.
No, was she replaced by like a robot clone or something?
No, she was just replaced by an identical person who's been Avril Lavigne since the second album.
No, that's not you're thinking of Elvis Presley.
Yeah.
He was the one who was replaced.
Yeah. I want to say her name's like Marissa Miranda or some...
Melissa Vandella. It's Melissa Vandella. I'm covering my eyes because I know this.
It's such
Oh my God.
You know how like when you were in high school... Well, I guess maybe when you were in high school, just for no explainable reason, one day everybody knew that Marilyn Manson was the kid from the Wonder Years and had a rib taken out. That was like Matt and I's.
Okay.
The Avril Lavigne thing was like Matt and I's generation of that, where just one day every high school in America knew that Avril Lavigne wasn't really Avril Lavigne,
Yeah.
but was this other person.
She died
playing
in 2003.
the character.
Now she's Melissa Vandella.
So which one is Al talking to in this?
Well, that's
in
the
this
thing.
interview?
This is
that the
early
real
enough.
Al?
This is probably Avril.
I think
Oh
That's
my
the
probably
real Avril.
the
Okay.
real Avril. I think it probably is, Matt.
Yeah, probably.
Wow.
Al also
that's
does it.
rare footage of the real Avril Lavigne in this interview.
There's Al. First of all, makes fun of her for her Canadian accent.
Oh, he is dunking on Canada this whole time.
This whole time, it was gearing
has
up
Celine
for
Dion
Canadian
as well. He's
yeah,
just-
idiot
yeah.
the next year.
Yes.
But then I think one of the more like oof lines is she talks about how she's against Britney Spears, and he says, "Well, who are you more against, Britney Spears or Hitler?" And I was like, "Oh my god!" Like,
And her response is perfect. Whatever he had her saying, where she's like, I don't know who I'm against, but and then she's like, oh, sorry, I lost myself there.
Matt, you had mentioned this earlier on an
Yes.
episode, but he also gets the literally line in during this interview where she says, I literally live in a suitcase.
Yeah.
And he loses his mind
Yeah.
over improper use
You
of
literally live out of a suitcase? Literally. And then finally ends with, she's like, what does it smell like in there? And she goes, literally like crap.
I believe that.
Yeah.
Which I believe is Al's line. No, in case it wasn't clear, Weird Al is a nerd. He's a nerdy guy. He doesn't doesn't sing about it. He has. I think he's one of those nerdy guys, though. Like, he'd do really well on Jeopardy.
Yep.
But only if you got him on sort of one of the pop culture tears, because he's actually really knowledgeable about music and the rock history.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
He very much has the taste of a man his age. If you ever saw the Self-Indulgence tour or heard any of the songs that he played during that tour,
Oh, the
he would
covers at
close
the
out
end,
every
yeah.
set with covers of other songs that he was just fond of, and he'd play Elvis Costello and Mountain, like this kind of dad yacht rock kind of stuff, which I think is his bag. I think he likes that kind of music.
I mean, look, it's 2003, and Al is still getting some Prince's short jokes in there.
Boy, he asks he asks Avril Lavigne if she prefers to be referred to as a little person or a midget, and she gets confused about what that means, and he goes, "Oh, sorry, I got your questions mixed up with Prince." I mean, his absolute commitment to the bit, of course, yes, that an earlier time before we've stopped using one of those words mostly, but
and Weird Al's apologized for that.
Yeah.
yes,
Like, he actually really does care. Like, oh, yep, different time. Shouldn't have said that. I understand why that was wrong. And everyone's always forgiven him for it because, it's clearly sincere, and he clearly means it because he's the nicest man in the world.
and in this case, it's definitely
although
fine because he uses it to make fun of Prince once again.
Yeah, somehow when it's making fun of
his-
Prince, it gets a bigger pass.
Unwavering commitment to always getting an opportunity to mock Prince is really admirable at this point.
Although he's said in interviews kind of recently, because he's semi-retired now, like he's going to release songs as he feels them, but he's not going to make any more records. Like, he's out of his I think he had, what was his contract? It was like
14
a 12 album
album
deal, 14 album deal. It was nuts. And so he's finally out of that contract, and he's not going to do albums because he just doesn't want to anymore. He would rather tour and just sort of record as it comes to him. Also, he's in his 60s. He doesn't have to do that anymore.
Sure.
But he has said in interviews more recently, people ask him, why have you retired? Why do you think you want to put this all down? And they start asking him questions like, do you think it's appropriate for a white artist to make parodies of black artists? And he'll say it's questions like that make me want to retire. He just doesn't want to have to face that sort of thing any longer.
Yeah.
He comes from a time when he was just sort of having a good time and being sort of fun and didn't really concern himself with the politics of his own work. And now people are a little bit more politically aware of it. And even though everybody loves Al, he doesn't ever want to be in that bucket of syrup where he has to face some kind of controversy. He's very non-controversial in that way. He wants to kind of back down. Are you familiar with like the early days of Al getting on YouTube? Like he started to do some YouTube videos at some point. Like he decided that was going to be his thing.
A little bit, yeah.
The earliest one I remember was Al Shreds, and then it was him on a stage with a shredder just putting a sheet of paper through it and the whole crowd losing their mind.
Yes.
But he would do these little mini like dad joke pun videos that were like 15 seconds long, and they were amazing every time.
But you were talking about the literally joke, and he's always been a little bit of a school teacher when it comes to grammar.
Oh, sure, yeah.
And so he would actually travel around, and when somebody put literally, he would like cross it out on a sign. He went to a 10 items or less lane with a sticker with the same font on it, and put it up that said 10 items or fewer. Like he's actually correcting the grocery store's grammar.
He's got a whole grammar song coming up.
Yeah, we're getting close to the grammar song. Yeah.
But it is kind of wild, once you're a long-term Al fan, you kind of see those motifs, those jokes come up time and time again. Mm-hmm. Not just like certain phrases or, musical habits, but like the same gag. He'll reuse it. So the literal, like making fun of the literally bit, everybody was doing that, but he kind of zeroed in on that and actually made a grammar song eventually.
Yeah, I mean, his anger and real frustration with her is what makes it especially funny. He knows how to ham it up just the right way.
Well,
and when we get to the Eminem interview and he talks about the triple negatives, that part always kills me.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
man. He knew which interview to end with. For sure.
Oh, yeah.
But this one ends perfectly with when he says basically like, well, the interview's basically done. Can you just ramble incoherently about something nobody cares about? And then boy does this archival footage step up to the task that's put out there, because I could not follow at all what she was trying to say at that point in the interview. I was like, all right.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, it's amazing. When he watched that video interview with her, the original interview with her, he must have been like, this is gold mine. Like, he has so many things to choose from for this. It's so perfect. They have this long conversation about her butt crack because she brings it up, that there's questions about her butt crack. And then, they wind up just both yelling back and forth at each other, and Al's screaming and she's screaming back, and it just keeps going and going. And then finally she just gets serious and goes, thank you for understanding me. And I was a great laugh. I loved that. So funny.
Now we kind of get, not my least favorite of these interviews, but the Britney Spears one is still good. But I actually think that this one picks up way more steam when Justin Timberlake comes in.
Oh, yeah. No, for sure. I mean, because I was going to say, this is really a joint interview. This two of them. He's never done one of these before, and he comes up with this great device where he puts Britney on a television, like she's videoing in via satellite. So he starts talking to Britney, but then he brings Justin Timberlake into the studio to try to get them to reconnect. This is a wild thing to watch in 2025 because we know now a lot more about the dynamic with these two people. And now the idea of someone trying to force them back together is not as charming as Al makes it seem here.
I literally wrote, while this is potentially one of the more dated fake interview segments he's done in a while, the Justin Timberlake stuff raises so many questions about what was the original recording.
Like, my God.
He's just like, yeah, I'm a creep. What of it? Like, you're just like, what is this interview?
He calls himself a creep. He's doing weird, like looking off to the side, like he's barely paying attention. Al is calling him out on him constantly rubbing his nose. Like, I don't know what was going on. I'm not going to say any more than that, but Justin Timberlake looks a little off.
Little bit off his game.
He looks like he might be a little off.
I love when he yells at him about his motto. Your motto sucks.
Well, just the whole thing is just like, we have to do the motto thing because Al asked him, we're jumping ahead a little bit, but Al asked, do you have any motto in life? And Justin Timberlake says, I believe if you put 150% out, you can always expect 100% back. And Al's like, yeah, but that means you lose 50%. What a stupid motto. And then Justin's like, well, I just think, and Al cuts him off. It's like, no, your motto sucks. It's really good. It's really, really funny.
Angry douchebag Al in interviews is the best version of
Al
Al
is just
in the interviews.
so irritated with Justin Timberlake in this. Like from the jump, he is everything Justin has to say. He is rolling his eyes at him like he is such a nuisance. As soon as Britney leaves, oh, it's great.
The line we quote all the time is when Justin Timberlake says, "Oh, it's big."
Oh yeah.
Oh, it's
my
big.
God.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
what do you think? Oh, they're big. That's kind of sexist, don't you think? Yeah, we wouldn't talk about you. Oh, it's big. I would love just like a GIF. I'd use that every day. Oh, it's big.
I'm sure we got to find someone in our world can make that for us.
I don't know what he's alluding to. I want to see the actual
what the original
full
footage
interview.
is.
Like,
Yeah.
Again,
For people who haven't seen it, it's Al asks Justin's like, so like now that Britney's gone, can you tell us what she's really like? And Justin just looks down the barrel of the camera and just goes, oh, they're big. And Al is like, what? He's like, how dare you? That's so offensive. How could you objectify women like that? What would you say if like we talked about you like that? And then he does it again. He looks down the camera. Oh, it's big. It is insane. Absolutely insane. What I wouldn't give for that footage. I wonder if anyone's just tracked down the originals of some of these ALTVs.
Someone has to have.
I would think so.
How hardcore, you know who would have an answer for
Dave
us?
and Ethan.
Honestly, Dave and Ethan.
Yeah.
Dave and Ethan would be able to tell us.
We got to make some calls, guys. We're gonna look into this.
But talking about strange
and that's also a little
and weird.
That's a little edgy for Al too. Like he just doesn't tell a lot of like sexy jokes that way.
No, but
I do
historically,
remember,
ALTVs have been one of the few places where he will cut loose a little bit in that regard. Like that's
a little
probably his
bit.
most PG-13 stuff is generally on these types of shows.
I think it was in one of the later ALTVs where he talks to Kevin Federline. Remember Kevin Federline?
Oh,
I do.
He asks Kevin Federline like, do you think you still have a music career next year, or are you going to do the logical thing and go into gay porn? And I remember just being unbearably shocked hearing Al just say the word porn at all.
Yeah.
It's like, Al, you're not supposed to. My stars! And I'm fanning myself.
I always use this quote, but there's a line in Scrubs that I think about with Al, where I think it's it's either the janitor or the lawyer in Scrubs says, most people don't like to think of me as a sexual being. And like I feel like Al has spent most of his life cultivating us to not ever look at him as a sexual being. So when he says anything that acknowledges that sex exists in Weird Al Yankovic's sphere, it is like just gently off-putting for some reason.
Yeah, we all recoil.
Like, we do get there is one commercial we get between this and the next interview that is for the Poodle Hat CD. That is one of the worst advertisements for his CD I've ever seen, because it's literally just like, hey, here's all the other songs that he's done not on this album. Now here's his new album. All right, featuring the song Couch Potato. No music video included, by the way, but whatever.
Oh, man. They had so little confidence in this record. It's so sad.
They really did.
They were really trying to sell it off the old stuff.
Oh, God.
That was tough. Eminem really, Eminem's about to get his comeuppance, so we'll get there.
And then I just wrote down the metal detector ad. That was like a legitimate commercial that we got, right? That wasn't
for a metal detector.
That wasn't for LTV.
That was not a Tim and Eric sketch.
No, it looked like it could have been. It did look like it could have been one of those old LTV products that you like drill into your head, and it doesn't make you look like a jerk. Yeah,
when we just get a weird one random commercial. We get a quick appearance of Harvey the Wonder Hamster.
Of course, it's mandatory. Must have Harvey in every LTV. That's required.
And then continuing his desire to desperately push this album, we get this like cobbled together angry white boy polka music video of similar to what we've been already seeing with all the parodies. It is just the footage sped up or slowed down to synchronize with the polka, usually sped up.
Yep, usually sped up. I mean, it's effective enough for the purposes of this show. It gets the job done for him to show off the polka, which are always like super delightful.
I saw a lot of these clips and a lot of these interviews prior to seeing them strung together in the VH1 special, because he would play these during concerts, like during costume changes and stuff. So when you take them out of context and just sort of throw them up on a screen at a concert and then Al comes out, the energy is so much different. They actually come across as a lot funnier. You see them sort of strung together on VH1. It feels like a relic, like something you've kind of discovered in the middle of a primetime block when you should be watching something else on an actual network station.
Here at the Almond Joy Factory, where tropical vibes abound, we use soft, fresh-tasting coconut.
The crunchiest almonds and delicious chocolate candy.
Ah, but do you know what our most important ingredient is? Sometimes you feel like a nut.
Sometimes you don't.
Almond Joy's got nuts and something even way better than that. Yes, Almond Joy is made with almonds and joy.
Who says you can't be the topic of conversation for all the right reasons? The Hyundai Tucson Hybrid pairs bold presence with advanced technology and sleek style. It's everything you didn't know you needed in an SUV and then some. Okay, Hyundai. Visit HyundaiUSA.com to learn more.
It's summer. Time to enjoy long days, lazy nights, and great food. Because Uber Eats has deals all summer long. So, when hunger strikes, don't sweat it. Delicious deals are just a tap away on Uber Eats. Enjoy all your favorite grocery items delivered straight to you. Get ice cream, soda, and snacks from your favorite stores like Wegmans and CVS and make the most of every moment. Now that sounds like a good summer. Order now on Uber Eats. Terms apply. Product availability varies by region. See app for details.
Whatever the occasion, effortless elegance is right this way. Because Hilton brings you new ways to stay courtesy of the Nomad London. And it doesn't stop at award-winning dining in a space draped in velvet and illuminated by vintage chandeliers. No, this day goes beyond with unparalleled personalized service and attentive hospitality. Oh, and did we mention the Nomad London can be booked using your Hilton Honors points at Hilton.com? Hilton, for the stay.
Does it ever feel like you're a marketing professional just speaking into the void? Well, with LinkedIn ads, you can know you're reaching the right decision makers. You can even target buyers by job title, industry, company, seniority, skills. Wait, did I say job title yet? Get started today and see how you can avoid the void and reach the right buyers with LinkedIn ads. We'll even give you a $100 credit on your next campaign. Get started at linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply.
Looking for a new seasonal anime? Want to know what new anime music is out there? Looking to add a new waifu or husbando to the list? Or are you just looking for a modern or classic anime to add to your plan to watch list? My name is Nick and I run the Waifus and Weeaboos podcast. And you can check me out on Geekscape.net.
Obviously we're seeing it without commercial breaks, but even with commercial breaks, comparatively to the old ALTVs, there was so much other stuff in between these fake interviews that it is a lot of work to literally, like, as a human sometimes, to sit through 4 of these back to back. Even though they're all good, there is like this exhaustion factor of like, I really wish I was doing anything else right now.
It's a lot of content. I mean, again, it's amazing. He made some of these are massive. We said like how much he put into these as promotional vehicles was incredible.
Yeah.
And at this point, it's just less. And like I said, I couldn't tell you if it was Al wanting to do less or the network wanting him to do less, but someone made that call. Yeah. Or both. Maybe both. I don't know. Yeah.
It could be both. But yeah, we get the music video. It's cool. It does its job. Listen to our thoughts on that polka by listening to the Angry White Boy Polka episode of the podcast.
Go. We've talked about it
for an hour. That was a long episode.
We talked and talked and talked. That's all we do.
And then we get the Celine Dion interview.
There's a lot to cover in that.
There is.
Poodle Hat came out in the early 2000s. Al is on VH1, and I'm trying to just sort of like picture, like get a little bit of a cross section as to where not just his career was, but where a lot of pop music was. I feel like the early 2000s was maybe the last time there was kind of a coherent monoculture when it came to pop music, because the record industry was dying thanks to a lot of people were moving online. Matt, maybe you can speak to this a little bit, but I feel like, there were still big hits and there were a lot of hits that people still knew, but I felt like this was the time when things started to drift apart a little bit. Like this might be the first Weird Al record you got and you weren't familiar with all of the pop songs that he was satirizing. And I feel like it's just gotten worse since then. This was it felt like an attempt to sort of push together things that he was barely keeping track of. Weird Al was no longer on top of the culture as much with something like Poodle Hat.
I think that that's semi-true. Poodle Hat's weird. Poodle Hat as an album is weird. As we've wrapped up our coverage of it, like it's not Al batting 100 the way that you expect him to. The fact that he didn't really get to promote this album properly means that for a long time people didn't even know this album really came out at all. I think that this is the last one where, because I'm trying to think, like Hot in Here was pretty everywhere. Complicated was pretty inescapable.
I mean, Lose Yourself was the biggest song.
Lose Yourself was like massive.
Yeah, was
but
tremendous.
I do think that when you get to the album after this that we're going to start doing with Straight Outta Linwood, that was definitely one where I like didn't know the Do I Creep You Out was like a American Idol thing that I just like didn't know. Like there was a couple there. And then when you get to the last two albums, for sure, Alpocalypse and Mandatory Fun, I know for a fact that on both of those albums, there are at least 1 to 2 songs that I didn't know what the original song from the polkas actually sounded like until like I remember going into like a Wawa, for those of you on the East Coast that know what that is. But I went into a Wawa at like 1 a.m. and this song was playing, and I was like, why do I know the words of this song? I know I've never heard the song in my life. And then I realized that it was because Al had it in a polka. It was the I Need You Now song by Lady A. Like I was like, like I was, but I think Poodle Hat may have been the last one where there was, like you said, the cohesion. Now it's impossible. Like the way that like even what counts for plays to make a song go onto the Billboard Hot 100 is so impossible to like follow, because like sometimes it's just like, yeah, this song popped off with Gen Alpha on TikTok and they've just like used the sound clip so much that now it's like the 3rd biggest song in America, and you'll never hear it on the radio once while you're like it's I understand why he's pulling away.
I understand a lot of this is about the evolution of the record industry. A lot of this is about just the evolution of the way music changes over time, and a big part of it is how old are we again? Remember what's the best year for music? The best year for music is whatever came out when you were 16. Yeah. So that's not whatever year you turn 16, that's the best year for music. For me, that was 1994. So 1994 is unassailable. There's not a bad song from 1994.
I wasn't 16 in 1994, but I think that there's a strong argument that 1994 could still be the correct answer.
Having that as your year is a little bit cheating.
Yeah, that is a top tier year.
We're going to need some more data to back up that argument.
We've on like 2 other podcasts, we've actually, this is no lie, on the One Hit Thunder podcast, we did an episode, Matt, myself, and the hosts of that show, that 1994 is the best year for music. So the fact that that's the year you said is
you're entering a bit of an inside joke there. We had a long debate about
it. All right. So maybe I am, stepping forward, but I still maintain, however old you are, you could be born in 1920, you could be born in 2010, whatever year you turn 16, that's going to be the best year for music. So
no, I don't disagree with
you still got it ahead of you.
I don't disagree with you. Like I talk about. We were talking about pop punk earlier. Like my favorite Blink album is not what I think people would consider their best Blink album, but I was 16 and it was the album that was in every car that I was riding in for an entire year. So it's like those songs are so strongly attached to like driving for the first time or riding in your friend's car without without parents behind the wheel. Like there's definitely a kinetic energy that comes from that exact situation. And like, not for nothing, also like doing what we do where it's like going song by song in order. Even in the 80s, there like Al has always had, I think, at least every other album, at least one big swing and a miss on like what was going to be a song that people cared about. Like, I think the biggest one for us is like Toothless People, like taking a swing that the Mick Jagger Ruthless People song was going to be this like timeless classic that everybody remembered was like a real fumble.
And in a lot of ways, that's also a part of, I know why he doesn't why he's talking about not really doing parodies so much anymore, or not doing albums anymore, because things have never had so short a shelf life, generally speaking. And by the time Al now can do a parody and turn it around, it could be laughably old. Even if he moved as quickly as he possibly could, it's just rare that stuff sticks around. Back to the music industry itself, it just is not now what it was even back in 2003, where we are now.
Yeah. I have a 10-year-old son, and he's a a YouTube addict, and he likes to watch the shorts on YouTube, and it is insane how quickly everything moves.
Yep.
You'll hear the song, and this is the first day I've heard it, and already you can search up, and there's already 5 parodies of it that came out that same day.
Are you also talking about Pink Pony Club? Because the 10-year-old in my house has played about 15 parodies of Chapel Roan's Pink Pony Club in YouTube shorts for me. And I'm like, this song is, that's kind of a weird example because that song came out like 6 years ago and then just suddenly popped off this year. But still, like, in the grand scheme of things, that song is barely a year old. How are there so many well-written, well-constructed, well-recorded parodies already existing on the internet off of that song?
Weird Al constructed a culture that's already lapped him.
Yeah. Which is why I think, like, one of the more recent things he did besides his like last polka was like the Hamilton polka, and that even felt like a safe bet because at that point Hamilton had firmly established that it wasn't a flash in the pan.
Oh
by
yeah,
that point.
and he did it for that charity album they were making as well. So it was even for a cause.
Yeah.
But he has, the last few things he has done have essentially been polkas. He did the original song for Weird. But he's been in the originals and polkas world now, which is safe. Like, that's a good place to be. I mean, no one is
YouTube world. We're going to talk about some of those because he's shown up on a lot of those rap battles YouTube channels.
He
and
definitely
so,
has.
He's really found a separate footing just doing YouTubers content as like, okay, I'll do a song for your YouTube channel.
Yeah, but I just love, he might have an irritating number of imitators in the parody world, but he certainly does not in the polka medley world.
No, he doesn't.
He's got that. He still has that one really, really held tight. Like, that's, No.
But again, to go to something that Krista Make said on our Bob episode, like, there might be 1 million people on YouTube, but none of them are a noteworthy name on the level
absolutely.
that Al was able. You know what I mean? Like, it's,
and I don't think anyone ever will at Al's level. Like,
no.
I don't think it will happen again the way it did. He is going to wind up this sort of singular figure in this, like, corner of comedy music because now it's too saturated. I don't think anyone else could possibly get a foothold. But the fact that prior to the internet bringing everyone together the way it has and making recording a parody as easy as plugging a microphone into your not even needing a microphone, just using your phone. The fact that he stood alone in that genre for 30 years before that happened really is, and now it's super saturated. I think that says a lot.
Yeah. Well, there was a time when you would require Weird Al was out there. He was the one who kind of broke through. He was the mainstream parody guy. There was this whole school of comedy musicians out there that you could learn about through carefully curated shows like the Dr. Demento Show, where Weird Al got his start. And I think it's very telling that Dr. Demento is going to retire next year. He's done. He's also my dad's age. This guy is in his 80s. He's how many more comedy records can he sort of sift through? I find it very telling. I was a member of the Demento Society briefly, and another friend of mine donated to a documentary film that they were making about him, and one of the prizes was, if you donate, was a box set of all of the Demento Society basement tapes, they called them. So all these underground records of these comedy things. So you'd get Weird Al B-sides, but all these other obscurities as well. You listen to them from beginning to end, starting in the mid-'90s and going through the early 2000s. And you'd hear, in the early ones, what Weird Al did at the start. Songs about riding the bus, songs about having a meal, a lot of songs about food, a lot of songs about taking care of a cat, raising kids, universal things. You get into the early 2000s, all of a sudden all of the comedy records are about popular culture. Star Wars songs, Harry Potter songs, more Star Wars songs. It's just that. It became super geek-centric in a way that it was less fun to listen to.
Yeah.
So maybe this is also part of just the changing culture Al was trying to fit into. He couldn't necessarily be part of, be sort of the king of this comedy world anymore, because the comedy world was now facing in a completely different direction. The new generation had new interests. Weird Al was doing that. He would do his Star Wars songs as well, but that's not all he was doing.
Yeah. We always talk about Al. Some of our favorite Al songs, we've realized, are the ones where it is, like you said, they're either about everyday things or the reverse of that, which is like, Matt, I'm trying to think of how we've worded this, like an inaccurate level of outrage type songs where it'll be like
disproportionate outrage.
Disproportionate outrage. So it'll be like a song about like aliens taking over the planet, but the song is mostly about how it just inconveniences him as a human being and not caring about society, or the reverse where it's like the most tiny inconvenience to him is like the end of the fucking world. like getting a parking ticket and he's like ready to cut someone's head off and murder them level of rage. Like those are like as you're talking about the ones that last 30 years later, those songs are still hilarious to you because there's like something very human and relatable, and it's not just like how many references to this very niche pop culture topic can we squeeze into a 4-minute song.
And I think Weird Al was very adept at both. And look at Couch Potato from Poodle Hat. Like, that's all, contemporary TV references, and I think it's really brilliant, especially because he can match Eminem's really weird rhyming scheme on that song. But it feels dated now. He's talking about the Ali G show. You have to explain to what that is to a young person. It doesn't make any sense anymore. The ones I think that last a long time are the ones that are parodies of songs that have lasted, like Beat It, or like you said, they're about these sort of universal things. And I feel like Weird Al was at a little bit of a crossroads with these in this era where he's trying to tap into what's popular, not just in terms of popular music, but comedy topics. And I feel with Poodle Hat, this is where he's really started to struggle in earnest. You said that he wasn't firing on all cylinders, and I agree. There's
a strong argument for someone to point to this as his worst record, if not for a handful of originals that are just like unspeakably great. Like, if not for stuff like Genius in France and Hardware Store on this record, it would be very easy to argue it being his worst release as far as just like completely swinging and missing so much. But big picture,
I mean, the album after this is Straight Outta Linwood, which is one of the most successful he ever made.
Yeah.
So he does very,
and it's one of my favorites, actually.
Yeah, he follows that up. So it's, there's a lot going on.
Which is like Al. Al always tanks an album and then releases the biggest album to date after that.
That is often his move. This is maybe the most off topic we have ever been on this show.
Oh, for sure. But I love
history. We have spent like 30 minutes talking about just other Al things.
Well, because I think part of it is, and I'm going to say it right now, and I'm assuming you guys agree with me, the Celine Dion interview is probably the weakest of the 4 interviews that you sit through on this ALTV.
I don't know, man. I had a blast watching Celine. She seems like such a weirdo. She seems like such a weirdo. Like that.
And he has a really good setup and payoff bit as well. But she's a bit of a kook as well. I'd love to see just a conversation between those two.
Yeah, for real.
Exactly, right?
I would love to learn, because Celine Dion listens to like Spike Jonze or Tom Lehrer, like some of these like old comedy. Like, she's familiar with that stuff, I'm sure. They could sing, she could quote SCTV sketches to Al, and they'd be on the same wavelength.
I mean, she straight up says, like, Al just says to her at the top, is like, how are things going with you these days? And she says, I'm always losing my boyfriends, I'm always crying, I'm always bare feet, I'm always miserable, I'm always crying, and I'm alone in the world. That's her actual response. I don't care what was happening in that other interview. That is funny. That's funny. Like, she's a funny person. I love her. I agree. I want to see a real interview with these two just talking to each other, because she seems awesome.
We made a joke a long time ago that my dream is to become rich enough to finance a cover album where everyone that Al's done a style parody of just covers the Al style parody song of them. now I also want to finance Al doing actual interviews with everybody that he lampooned on ALTV just to see what that relationship is like.
That would be amazing. I feel like we could make at least a bunch of those happen. He also, this is such a dumb joke, but I loved it so much, where Al says, like, on more serious subjects, I heard the sad news that your parents were captured and eaten by cannibals. And she just goes, I could smell the cooking of my mother. which is obviously just her broken English, but that is like, oh God, that made me really, I had to pause it. I was laughing so hard. That's so dumb. Oh God, I love that so much.
The bit that really got me was when he just sort of goes on one of those like absurdist rants. It's like, what are things you like? Do you like gluing gerbils together? Yes. Mm-hmm. Do you like, I forgot what are the other ones. And then he finally ends that sort of string of like, do you like X? Do you like Y? Yes. And then he says, can I borrow $5? She says, no. It doesn't,
never
didn't
works.
Work. Yes. That's the bit I like that bit.
Yeah. No, I thought her segment was great. Again, mostly just because she, again, like Avril Lavigne, although in a very different way, gave him just gold to work with.
Yeah.
Like there's great stuff in there.
There is, look, I'm not saying that it's the worst thing I've ever seen by any stretch of the imagination, just for
you were hating on it pretty hard, Matt Kelly. You were hating on it pretty hard.
The heights of the Avril Lavigne, the Justin Timberlake, and what comes after this, I was just like, this one's fine.
You came in super negative.
Notes. I did. Let's listen. Everyone knows I'm the negative one on this show.
You were hating on it so hard.
But yeah, unless you guys have anything else, let's go into this last one. That is, I would argue, at this point in time in 2025, this is the most famous fake Al interview that he's ever done.
And I'm gonna say as well, like I know we've been talking a lot about like maybe where Al's quality is or how much he's putting into this at this moment in time, like these specials, but I would make the argument that this might be the single funniest and most impactful thing he did on any ALTV ever.
Well, because even Eminem referenced this interview in his memoir.
Like this is, if you could only watch one thing, you'd have to watch this. Like this is so unbelievably, like it's brilliantly done. It's so funny, and it actually like was him addressing a real issue in a way that you always get a sense of like you sort of are picking up on Al's tastes and his real persona, in these. But this is like a real example of like, oh, he was mad.
Yeah.
Like he was mad at Eminem for this, and with good cause.
Yeah. Well, like we said, when we did the episode on Couch Potato, Eminem wrote in his memoir, like, yeah, I saw the interview and he's right. Like me taking away that music video was the lamest thing I've ever done in my career.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. But just, you really get, I feel like you can really feel, as funny as it is, Al is like truly annoyed with this guy.
I do love the opening line where he says, "From hardcore Al fan to hardcore rapper."
Yes. A very unflattering early photo of Eminem, yeah.
Obviously, one of the big things people talk about with this one is the I know what you're saying.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Eminem ends every single thing he says with, you know what I'm saying? I know what you're saying.
Yeah, no,
yes, I do. Yes, I do. Yeah, I know what you're saying.
Shut up!
Yeah. Anytime Al gets to scream "shut up" is always a treat.
The other line that I think always gets quoted from this is, "Hey man, I can only change the words. I can't change the music."
Exactly. And you already referenced as well the triple negative thing.
Yeah.
That he's going. Yeah. You don't owe nobody in your family nothing. And then I love, does that mean you do owe somebody in your family something? And Eminem just goes, it's up to you to decide.
It's such
phenomenal.
a great interview because Eminem, however you think of him as a musician, as an interview subject, especially at this era in his career, he is incoherent. Like he is not an articulate human being.
Yes.
He clearly has something on his mind, but when he's asked about it, he doesn't really know how to talk about it in any kind of intelligent way. Clearly hasn't thought about his music in that way. Mm-hmm. He's probably a very instinctual songwriter. He's just sort of letting it pour out of him and not really giving thought as to unpacking the meaning or what it means to society or his career at large. I think he could do that now. I think he's actually gained a lot of insight as he's gotten a lot older. I think especially as he's gone through rehab and he raps about fame. He's gone through a lot, Eminem. But in 2003...
Yeah,
he he was an idiot. And you can see that Al is kind of, golly, he had a lot to work with. Like, he could rearrange, he didn't have to rearrange, it feels like, this interview a lot to get
Al
to make
certainly is
Eminem
not
look like
trying
a
to
fool.
make him look smart.
No. Well, but also I feel like 2003 Eminem, we're at this weird impasse, right? Because Al mentions this one moment in this interview, but we're at this point where, like, Eminem first blows up on the scene with My Name Is, right? And it is, I mean, that song is incredible, but at the time it almost feels like novelty hip hop, right? It doesn't feel like a real rap song. It's goofy, it's got a silly music video and all of that. So then you're like at this Marshall Mathers LP point where I feel like he's really trying to prove that he's not that guy. Now, unfortunately, because of the record label, he has to do a Real Slim Shady. He has to do Without Me when he does the Eminem show. Like, they want whatever the new version of My Name Is to be the lead single off of all these albums. But you're getting these other albums that are much darker, much more serious. So you have this Marshall Mathers who does not want to be seen as silly whatsoever. Case in point, him getting into a very real fight with a sock puppet at the VMAs because Triumph the Insult Comic Dog was trying to ask him a question. And like that, like, I think that's the other thing. Like, Al is honing in on, like, I think Al gets it. He's like, I know exactly what's happening, and you are trying to be so serious and taken so seriously that you're a douchebag right now.
Yeah.
And this whole interview is him, like, kind of doing a takedown of, like, stop taking yourself so fucking seriously already.
Yes, absolutely.
Because then we get to the version that you're talking about now, Whitney. Like, yes, he's sober and all that stuff, but he's also, like, it's kind of like what's happening with Limp Bizkit, too, right now. Like, they're just so much more okay with being looked at as a joke and silly and more loose in that, and it makes them more relatable and approachable than like the stark, like, no, I'm a serious artist that's here to talk about my art.
Well,
like,
let's think for a minute though. What has Weird Al taught us through our lives? What function does Weird Al serve? And I can tell you what he taught me, and it's that popular culture and popular music and all of this art that is constantly being shoved at us as youths is fodder for whimsy. It's just a catalyst for humor. It's something that's meant to be torn apart. It's not meant to be taken seriously. Artists take it seriously. A lot of fans take it seriously. But Weird Al is this little bug in the system that's telling us, no, there's nothing serious about all of this. We can remix this and turn it into a song about the Amish or a song about sandwiches, and that's okay. So when he's getting a very serious artist who takes themselves very seriously, of course he's going to tear them to shreds.
Oh, we've said it before. He loves if it's a song that feels self-important, oh my God, does the hooks go in there?
Yeah, he
quicker.
said that before. Those are always the ones he has to lean into because it's so much more satisfying if something takes itself too seriously.
Yeah, I really, really wish Weird Al were still active because I want to hear him take on The Weeknd because, oh my God.
There's a lot of pop artists right now that are unfortunately, I guess, never going to get the full Al treatment, who are they are taking their fame to a level of seriousness that kind of needs the Weird Al humbling to come in. He was the great equalizer for every celebrity.
Yeah. Well, never say never, guys. It's not impossible. Can't rule it out.
Yeah.
Maybe the right combination of things will happen and he will surprise us with something one day.
Yeah. Listen,
well,
we've said that there's
a ton of people... I want him to do whatever
people...
he wants.
Oh, yes. Of course. Yeah.
Do whatever makes him happy, but with Al...
But make more parodies, Al. We insist.
Yeah, but we're talking about like all the internet parodies, right? And I think of something that, we're living in right now we're living in an AI and Chat GPT debate world, right? And I do a podcast about authors, hosted by authors, and that topic has come up, and the one piece of solace that I always get from that is the host of the show, Eric J. Brown. He always says, like, yes, could someone who's not passionate about writing go into ChatGPT and prompt it to write a full 250-page book of an idea that they have for them to then go and try to sell to a book publisher. Sure, that is perfectly possible. He goes, but if they're serious about writing about around the 15th revision that they're going to have to do for the editor of that publishing company, they're going to throw in the towel and give up. Like, I think that Al is always going to be that person where there can be a million imitators, but the cream of the crop that is Al Yankovic will always just rise right to the top when we need him most. And I don't think we need him most just yet.
You know what? That was beautiful, Matt Kelly.
Thank you.
That was really something. I like that a lot.
That's how I'm going to wrap this up. But
I like that a lot.
Where can people go to hear your voice, read your writings, and a great multitude of other things that you do on the internet?
Oh, I don't do anything on the internet. No, I'm all over this goddamn internet. I contribute to /film. That's where I do most of my writing. Do a lot of film reviews over there. More so, I am on the critically acclaimed network with my co-host William Bibiani. We have podcasts over there devoted to film reviews, but also the Academy Awards. We do a lot of podcast about short-lived TV shows called Canceled Too Soon. We actually talked about the Weird Al show on that podcast once, and came to the conclusion that it is horrible. we both love Weird Al, but that is a terrible program.
Oh, disagree. Boo.
Boo.
Oh, we're gonna butt heads on this one. Okay.
Oh, we just did.
I love the theme song, but no, not so fond of the show. Fun on paper, but yeah, I think it's clearly a victim of studio tinkering. But yeah, we covered that on our Cancel Too Soon podcast. You can go listen to oh golly, just everything. We answer letters. We talk about Star Trek. We have a lot of Star Trek episodes. We're going through Star Trek chronologically, and we're nearly at the end of Star Trek The Next Generation, so we've gone through a lot of the franchise already. So you can log in and go back to the start and listen to all of us rambling about Star Trek.
Love it.
Nice. Well, Matt Kelly, really quick, I'm going to do the thing that I do, and I'm going to say one more thing, because we glanced over one part of the Eminem interview that I just wanted to address, which is I would have been very happy if there was a full, proper Couch Potato music video where it was just Al listening to the song and Eminem staring him down.
Oh, that's right.
As we see in this interview, when Al just plays the song on the little boombox, and Al's sitting there like reading the paper, listening to it, and Eminem is just going like back and forth between looking bored and just staring him down like he wants to punch him in the face. It's gold. Honestly, the whole video of that back and forth, someone should make that edit. I'm sure it could be done. Yeah. It's brilliant. I wish that they could have compromised on that, and that could have been the video. It would have moved Couch Potato up at least a couple spots in my list.
And Matt, you're good at keeping notes on this. I do have one note that I don't remember what it means from when I watched this last night.
Okay.
But at some point, why does Eminem say a fucking tree, and what is the lead into that?
Oh, Al is talking about how M has a lot of potential. He's like, I see you as this little thing that has so much potential for growth. You plant a seed, and you plant an acorn, and you water it, and you give it sunlight, and you let it grow over time. And what does it become? And then it goes to Eminem, and Eminem just goes, a fucking tree. And Al's like, yeah, exactly.
All right, well, this show will continue to grow just like a fucking tree.
Exactly.
Into next week when we're going to read all your mail. It's going to be a mailbag.
Oh, boy.
So stay tuned for that.
Let me know if I get any hate mail. If somebody calls in.
Oh, boy. Last chance for the mailbag, everybody.
Yeah, get it in while you can.
It's that arrogant fucker who was never on topic. Don't have that guy on again.
Spelled Witney.
Hates the Weird Al show, and he wants to hear about it.
Yeah, give me grief. Come on. I'm not alive unless I'm being lambasted.
There you go.
Let's hear
it.
There you
go. All right,
Tell
Matt.
you what, here's what we do. I say one, Matt, you say two. And you say three, okay?
All right, perfect.
1,
2,
3.
All right, there we go.
4,
5.
All of this is going into the episode. This is all in the
Absolutely.
episode.
This is all going to be perfect.
You're listening to the Geekscape Network.